My name is Tom Whitmore. Now I am over 50 and have been married for a long time. Sometimes I think that life is a series of accidents that lead us to places we didn't always plan to go. If someone asked me how I ended up here, it would be difficult for me to answer myself. My life story began in a small town in North Carolina where everyone knew each other by name and strangers were viewed with suspicion. I was the youngest son in a family where the older brother always received more attention and the younger sister received more care. And I just was. Ever since I was a child, I had to learn to stand up for myself. His father worked as a car mechanic. His mother was a nurse at a local hospital. My father was strict, taciturn, and believed that a man should do more than talk. Mother, on the other hand, was the heart of our family, but her voice was rarely decisive. She often repeated, "Tom, no one in this world owes you anything. If you want something, take it yourself." I grew up surrounded by the smell of motor oil, the dust of gravel roads, and the screams of boys kicking a ball around on the school field. As a child, I was not the tallest, but I was stubborn as hell. One day, when I was 8, local bully Danny Harris decided to take my bike. I didn't give it away, got it in the eye, but didn't give it back. The bruise lasted a week, but from then on they began to respect me. School. Well, school was just school. I was never an excellent student, but I wasn't stupid either. I was bored with cramming dates and formulas, but I loved reading. It's not that I was interested in the classics, I was more interested in detective stories, war memoirs, stories about people who knew how to emerge victorious, even when fate played against them. Perhaps this is what shaped my character, taught me to see more than people show. I understood that life works according to its own rules, and if you want to achieve something, you need to learn to see more than others. I was good at sports, especially football, but I never became a star. However, this did not upset me. What I liked more was fixing cars, tinkering with iron, and understanding how everything works. My father wanted me to follow in his footsteps, but I always knew that this was not enough for me. I wanted to get out of our town. Time passed, and I felt that I was becoming cramped within these narrow frameworks. Sometimes it seemed like the city was trying to hold me back, not allowing me to take a step forward. I went to college in Virginia. This was a big event in my family because no one had gone so far to study before me. There I learned two important things. Firstly, the world is much bigger than it seems in a small town, and secondly, people are the same everywhere. Some help, and some will try to break you. And if you don't want to be broken, then you need to be more cunning, stronger, smarter. College was a real challenge for me. I had to learn to survive among strangers, prove to myself and others that I could cope. That was the first time I encountered betrayal. One of my fellow students, whom I trusted, set me up, and I had to get out of an unpleasant situation. This became a lesson: never trust people blindly. But at the same time, I also found real friends, those who helped me when it was difficult. For the first time in my life, I felt like I could count on someone other than myself. I have always adhered to simple but strict principles. Work must be done efficiently, one's word must be kept, and respect must be earned. I have never trusted people who talk a lot and do little. Honesty, willpower, and the ability to stand up for yourself are what I valued most. My interests have always been mechanics, technology, and everything that can be taken apart, understood, and put back together. From an early age, I loved to delve into engines, tried to understand how things worked, and I succeeded. But besides cars, I have always been interested in military history, biographies of strong people, and negotiation tactics. In college, I became interested in martial arts. It helped keep me in shape and keep my emotions under control. During my youth, I worked in my father's auto repair shop and worked part-time in garages and service stations. It was hard work, but it toughened me up. I learned to value money, work, and respect from colleagues. Then I realized that I wanted to open my own business someday, work for myself, and do everything according to my own rules. I now own my own auto repair shop, and although it was a long road to get there, I am proud of what I have achieved. Now, looking back, I realize that there are many things I could have done differently. But if I had known then what lay ahead of me, perhaps I would have chosen a different path. By the time I turned 25, I already knew what I wanted from life. I was not a guy who went with the flow, hoping that fate would put everything in its place. I have always strived for independence and control over my destiny. "Tom, do you really want to open your own workshop?" asked my friend Mike, lazily leaning back on the hood of the car. "Why not? I'm not going to work for someone all my life. I want my own business." "Well, how will you do this? You don't have capital. I'll find it. I'll save up, take out a loan, and start small. The main thing is to start." I saw myself as the owner of my own business. From an early age, working in my father's garage, I understood that simply working for someone else was not for me. I wanted to be the boss, the person who decides where to go and what decisions to make. Working in different auto repair shops, I learned not only to repair cars, but also to understand people, to understand who can be trusted and who is better to keep at a distance. I dreamed of something more than just a provincial life. I wanted to build something of my own that would bring not only money, but also respect. The world of business beckoned to me, and I began to become interested in how successful companies operate, how decisions are made, and how negotiations are conducted. Books about entrepreneurship and biographies of successful people became my companions. "You're always reading something, Tom. When was the last time you took a vacation?" Dan, one of ours, teased me. "I rest when I know my plan is working. And now I'm studying." "Plan? What's the other plan?" "We just want to live a great life. That's it. And I want to live the way I want, and not the way I have to." Of course, this doesn't mean that I was an introverted and boring guy. I loved speed cars, motorcycles, racing. Adrenaline pumped blood through my veins and made me feel alive. In the evenings, I could hang out with friends in the garage, tinkering with engines, or go on another illegal race, risking getting a fine or crashing another car. By the age of 28, I already had my own small workshop. It may not have brought in huge amounts of money, but I knew that this was just the beginning. "Tom, you did it. You really have your own business," Mike said, looking around the small room. "For now, it's just a workshop, but I'm not going to stop. And what next? Furthermore, develop, grow, expand. Well, then let's raise a beer for this." It was important for me to prove to myself that I was capable of achieving something. I didn't intend to stay at the same point all my life. I didn't want to wake up every morning and go to a job I hated. I saw only one road ahead of me up. Slowly, step by step, but forward. I was not a person who created illusions or believed in miracles. I knew that success is given only to those who are ready to fight for it, and I was ready. I've never been one to believe in fate or instant coincidences. But if you asked me how I met Emily, I would say that it was just that, a fateful coincidence. It happened on a summer evening in a small bar on the outskirts of the city. I went there after a long day at work, just to have a beer and relax a bit. The music wasn't very loud, the lights were dim, and the air was filled with a mixture of tobacco smoke and the smell of fried snacks. "Do you always sit alone and look into a glass?" A voice came from next to me. I looked up and saw her. Tall, with wavy dark hair that had brown highlights in the soft lighting of the bar. She had expressive brown eyes, in which confidence and mischief were red at the same time, and a slight half-smile, as if she knew some secret that I had to unravel. She was dressed simply but stylishly, a light blouse that emphasized her graceful collarbones, dark jeans that fit perfectly on her slender figure. She looked as if she could equally well be a guest at an expensive reception or simply enjoy the evening city with a glass of wine. Tall, with wavy dark hair and laughing eyes. She looked confident, as if she knew what to say and how to present herself. "I usually just drink," I answered, grinning. "Can you talk? Or just drink?" she said, sitting down next to him. I couldn't help but smile. This wasn't the kind of flirting I was used to. There was no feigned playfulness in her words, rather a slight challenge that for some reason I wanted to accept. "I can. I'm just waiting for something interesting to talk about," I retorted. "So I was lucky to be on this list." She bowed her head, looking at me searchingly. "Maybe. Emily turned out to be not only attractive, but also an incredibly interesting person. She worked for an architecture firm doing interior design, and her eyes lit up when she talked about her projects. Her work was not just a way for her to make a living, but a real passion. She dreamed of creating something that would last for years to come, that would inspire people and bring joy. Her movements were smooth but confident, her gestures light but expressive. When she spoke, her voice was soft, but with a clear hint of playfulness, as if she always found a way to add lightness and warmth to the conversation. There was no unnecessary constraint in her speech, only naturalness and self-confidence. The conversation with her was easy, as if we had known each other for a long time. We talked about life, about the city, about work. She worked in an architectural firm and was full of ideas and ambitions. I talked about my workshop, and she listened with sincere interest, asking questions. "So you are your own boss?" she asked. "Sort of. It's a small workshop for now, but I have plans. I love people who know what they want." Emily traveled a lot. She liked to study the culture of different countries. She was especially attracted to European cities. She could talk for hours about Barcelona, about how the sun plays on Gaudi's mosaic walls, or how in Paris every nook and cranny is imbued with history. At some point, I caught myself not just listening to it, I was remembering every detail. The way she plays with a strand of hair, the way she bows her head slightly when she thinks about the answer, how her eyes light up when she talks about what she loves. It was a strange feeling. Not just sympathy, not just infatuation. Something more. Something that was just beginning, but was already impossible to ignore. Our relationship with Emily developed quickly, but not rapidly, rather, like the smooth movement of water that you feel with every nerve, but you cannot say exactly at what moment it completely captured you. After that first meeting in the bar, we began to see each other more often. Walking around the city at night, long conversations over coffee, sudden trips to the coast, all this became a natural continuation of our acquaintance. In her presence, I felt at ease, as if the world around me was becoming a little softer, and the air was saturated with the aromas of her perfume and muffled laughter. She was a woman who knew what she wanted and was not afraid to show it. When we were alone, there was a tension between us, an electricity that could hardly be called innocent. Emily is not one of those who play hard to get, but she doesn't rush headlong into the pool either. She knew how to keep balance just enough to make me crave even more. One day, when I invited her over after dinner at a small Italian restaurant, she slowly ran her finger along the rim of her glass and looked at me with a slight grin. "Do you know what I like about you?" she asked, tilting her head to the side. "Enlighten me," I replied, taking a sip of wine. "You are patient. You like to drag out the moment, build up tension. You don't rush forward, but you don't retreat either. Do you like it?" I grinned. "Yes, yes." That evening, when she ended up in my apartment, everything happened slowly, almost painfully. I felt her every touch, every glance, and this only made the excitement stronger. The light was dim, our shadows danced on the walls, and her lips left hot marks on my skin. She was in no hurry. We studied each other as if for the first time, absorbing every sensation. This was our first time for her, for me. We had never been with someone else before, and perhaps that was why everything seemed so new, exciting, almost mystical. She trembled in my arms, not from fear, but from anticipation. I felt her breathing quicken, how her body responded to my every movement. We moved slowly, listening to each other, exploring every inch of skin, as if discovering unknown territory. Her skin was warm, supple, smelled of jasmine, and something else, something that I remembered forever. When her nails easily slid along my back, I realized that now we were not just infatuated. It was something more, something that pulled me deeper every day. The night passed in hot, endless touches, in frank confessions, in quiet moans that dissolved in the darkness. We merged together again and again until fatigue took over. The next morning she woke up first. Standing by the window, wrapped in my shirt, she looked like a painting meant to be remembered forever. "Are you awake?" I asked, lazily watching her. "No," she smiled. "I'm just getting used to the idea of you being around." Emily's family was not what I expected. When she first started talking about her parents, I imagined strict, conservative people living according to clearly defined rules. But when we went to visit them in their country house, everything turned out to be completely different. Tom, I warn you, my mom always asks too many questions, and my dad likes to test all the guys I bring, Emily said with a smile, squeezing my hand as we parked at their house. Do you bring them often? I grinned. You are the first. These words made me hold my breath, but before I could say anything, the door of the house swung open and her mother appeared on the threshold, full of energy and with a warm smile on her face. Oh, how tall. We need someone like that in our family, Emily. She winked and turned to me. I'm Janet. You can just be a mom if you behave. A man with a serious face and confident posture followed her. He looked me up and down, then extended his hand. Henry, Emily's father. He introduced himself briefly, his voice low and authoritative. I hope you're a tough cookie, Tom. There is no other way here. From that moment, I realized that I was welcome here. Their home was filled with laughter, lightness, and warmth. The only exception was Emily's younger sister, Lily. She lazily walked out of the house, crossed her arms over her chest, and looked at me with obvious boredom. Here he is, she said with a mocking smile. I didn't expect you to be so ordinary. Lily, be so kind as to at least try to behave decently, Emily hissed at her. Come on, I'm just checking to see if he can handle family dinners, Lily chuckled, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. Later at dinner, Lily never missed an opportunity to make some snarky remarks. I decided not to pay attention, but I still felt that there was some tension between the sisters. After dinner, Emily's father invited me to drink whiskey with him, and at that moment I realized that to some extent he had passed his test. Emily's introduction to my family did not go as smoothly as I would have liked. When we arrived at my parents' place, my mother greeted us with restraint, although she tried to smile. So you're the same Emily, she said, looking at her appraisingly. Tom told me a lot about you. I hope it's good, Emily smiled. Basically, my mother answered evasively and turned to me. Tom, help me in the kitchen. When we were left alone, my mother folded her arms across her chest and looked at me with her usual sternness. She's cute, but I don't know, Tom. I think she's too free-spirited. Are you sure you're on the right path? Mom, I love her. And that's the main thing, I answered firmly. Love is one thing, but marriage is another. My mother shook her head. Just be careful, son. I sighed, knowing that her doubts would not go away, but I was confident in my choice. Our relationship with Emily became stronger every day. We traveled, supported each other in work, and dreamed about the future. I knew that I wanted to spend my whole life with her, and one day, in one of our favorite places, I took the plunge. We went to the mountains for the weekend. Autumn painted the forests in golden red shades, the air was fresh, and the silence was almost magical. We were sitting on the top of the cliff admiring the view when I stood up, took a small box out of my pocket, and got down on one knee. Emily, you are the best thing that ever happened to me in my life. I want my every day to begin with your smile and end with your voice. Will you marry me? She looked at me, her eyes sparkling with emotion. You can't even imagine how long I've been waiting for this moment, she whispered, and, not holding back her tears, rushed into my arms. Of course, yes, the wedding was perfect. She was not magnificent, but she became exactly what we wanted: cozy, filled with loved ones and endless happiness. Emily's father made a toast that made even the waiters laugh, and Lily just rolled her eyes, clearly not sharing the general delight. At one point during dinner, she gave me a meaningful look and grinned, but I still didn't understand what she meant. After the ceremony, her mother hugged me and said, "Now you are definitely ours. Welcome to the family, Tom." And at that moment, I realized that I had never been happier in my life. My marriage to Emily seemed ideal at first. Every day with her was full of lightness and joy. We set up a cozy home, took spontaneous weekend trips, and enjoyed life with each other. Emily continued to work at the architecture firm while I developed my auto repair shop. We both supported each other's ambitions, and this only made us closer. "You understand that you have golden hands, right?" she said, watching me repair the engine. "Maybe you should expand? But you understand that you have a brilliant mind?" I teased her back. "Maybe you should open your own studio." We were each other's source of inspiration and strength. However, over time, something began to change. Not immediately, not sharply, but gradually, as if a thin crack appeared on perfectly smooth glass. Our conversations became shorter, the evenings became quieter. Emily often stayed late at work, making excuses for important projects. I didn't mind, because sometimes I myself spent a lot of time in the workshop. But inside me there was a growing feeling that we began to laugh together less often, to talk heart to heart less often. "Are you tired?" she asked at dinner one day when I had barely touched my plate. "A little. Just a busy day," I replied, not wanting to go into detail. She nodded and continued eating, but I noticed how she avoided my gaze. Was it the little things? Maybe. But little things have a habit of adding up if you ignore them. After a couple of years of living together, we began to spend less time together. Working days took a lot of energy, and weekends were filled with meetings with friends and family responsibilities. We both knew that something was changing, but neither of us tried to talk about it out loud. "We need to go somewhere," I suggested one day. "Just take a couple of days and relax like before." Emily smiled, but her smile was not as lively as before. "Let's try," she said, but her voice sounded uncertain. I wanted to believe that it was just tiredness, that we were still the same Tom and Emily who once laughed at nonsense and dreamed of the future. But part of me already knew that everything was different. Our wedding anniversary was supposed to be a warm, joyful day. I made reservations at the restaurant in advance, ordered Emily's favorite flowers, and wanted to give us an evening that would remind us of where it all began. However, from the very morning the day did not go according to plan. "Have you forgotten that we promised to go to my parents today?" Emily asked, holding back her irritation when I reminded her of our dinner. "No, I didn't forget, but I thought we would have plans for just the two of us." "Can't we go see them this weekend?" I answered, trying not to raise my voice. "You always say that. Every time my family is involved, you suddenly have other plans." She shook her head and folded her arms over her chest. "That's not true, Emily. I just wanted to spend this evening with you, to remember why we got married in the first place." "Is it that bad?" She lowered her eyes, her fingers nervously fingering the hem of her sweater. It's important to me that my family be a part of this day too. They have always supported us, and you pretend they don't exist." "I don't pretend they don't exist," I flared up. "But maybe sometimes we should be just the two of us. Do you even remember the last time we were together without everyone? Do you remember the last time you asked me what I wanted?" She answered sharply. "You always decide for yourself." There was a tense silence. I saw her gaze soften, but there was something else in it, something that I could not fully understand. Finally, she just turned around and went into the bedroom, leaving me alone in the middle of the kitchen. We still went to her parents, but the tension was felt all evening. Janet, her mother, suspected something. Her gaze became especially intent when she looked at us. At dinner, she suddenly asked, "So, how was your special day?" Emily smiled tightly. "Wonderful, Mom." I pretended to finish my glass of wine, avoiding her gaze. Lily, as always, did not miss the opportunity to tease me. "So, Tom, you screwed up again? Or did he just decide to remain silent this time?" I smiled back, but didn't say anything. "Lily, don't start," Emily sighed tiredly. "Yes, I'm just wondering how it is with you. It's always so fun to watch." She chuckled. I pushed the plate away and looked at Emily. "Maybe it's time for us to go," I asked. She looked at her watch and nodded without saying a word. At that moment, for the first time, I thought, maybe everything is really going wrong. It took me a while to notice changes in Emily. At first, it was little things: a slightly more distracted look, a tired sigh when I suggested watching a movie together in the evening. But over time, these little things added up to something bigger. "Are you late again today?" I asked one day as she was getting ready to leave for work. Yes, we have an urgent project, she answered, without looking at me, tying her scarf. I'll try not to be too late. She actually came back later and later. Sometimes I did not hear her enter the house, and only in the morning I found her clothes neatly folded on a chair. We met less and less often in the kitchen at breakfast, and when we did meet, the conversations became short, as if we were both afraid of saying something wrong. When I tried to hug her in the evening, she pulled away. "Tom, I'm very tired," she said, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "Let's do it tomorrow, okay?" Tomorrow turned into the day after tomorrow, and then into next week. I felt like an invisible wall was growing between us, and worst of all, I had no idea how to destroy it. One day, leaving the house, she hurriedly kissed me on the cheek. "Don't wait for me for dinner. We're having a corporate party." "I'll be late." "Corporate party? Why am I only hearing about this now?" I asked, trying to catch her gaze. "Oh, nothing special, just a team meeting. We rarely get together like this, but the boss wants to celebrate a successful quarter," she quickly replied, and, without waiting for my answer, walked out the door. I decided not to beat myself up, but everything tightened inside me. This was not the Emily I married. She had changed, and I needed to understand what was happening. Later that evening, I tried calling her, but she didn't answer. I called again, the same thing. At 1 o'clock in the morning, the door opened quietly, and Emily entered the house, trying not to make any noise. "Where have you been?" I asked quietly from the darkness of the living room. She shuddered, clearly not expecting to see me. "Tom, you scared me. I told you, it's a corporate party," she chuckled nervously. "I called you twice." "The music was loud, I didn't hear it," she shrugged, kicking off her shoes. I looked at her, holding back my irritation. "Why didn't I know about this in advance? Why wasn't I even invited? I'm your husband, Emily." She frowned, clearly not expecting such a reaction. "Tom, it's just a corporate party. There were only employees there. Nobody brought their spouses. And you asked if it was possible, or did you just not want me there?" My voice became harsher. "Stop it. This was a work meeting, not a couple's party." "Work meeting until 1 in the morning? No answer to my calls." I crossed my arms over my chest. "Tom, you're being too dramatic," she sighed. "This is a normal event. Why make a problem out of it?" "Because you began to move away from me, Emily. You don't talk to me anymore. You don't laugh. You don't spend time with me. Why do you think I worry?" She fell silent, lowering her eyes. "I'm just tired, Tom. Work takes a lot of energy." "Are you so tired that you can't tell me what's going on?" I ran my hand through my hair, trying to control my anger. "Let's just go to bed," she repeated quietly, turning away. I looked at her, feeling that a chasm had formed between us, and perhaps it could no longer be bridged. In recent months, I have increasingly felt that I was losing control. But the strangest thing is how Emily has changed. If before she avoided intimacy, now she took the initiative, but in a completely different direction, unfamiliar to me. One evening, she entered the bedroom holding a leather whip in her hands. I looked at her in surprise. "Today, you will do only what I say," she said, her voice sounding low and authoritative. "Emily, what are you up to?" I tried to smile, but there was no usual playfulness in her gaze, only something more cold, hard pleasure from power. Before I could say anything else, she pushed me onto the bed and deftly tied my hands to the headboard. Her movements were confident, as if she was not doing this for the first time. "You've been thinking for too long that you're in control of the situation, Tom." Her lips were right next to my ear, her breath hot. "It's time to show you who's boss." She passed the whip across my chest, barely touching the skin, but this touch made me shiver. Then came a sharp blow. I hissed in surprise. "Emily, quiet. You don't talk until I give permission." Her voice was stern. She leaned closer, ran a finger along my cheek, then suddenly grabbed my chin, forcing me to look into her eyes. "You're nothing without me, Tom," she whispered mockingly. "Do you think you are the strong man I married? No, now you're just my toy." I didn't know what to say. Was this part of her fantasy? Or was there something more hidden behind this? While I was trying to understand my feelings, she hit me with the whip again, a little harder. "Now you belong to me," she said with a smile, "and you will do whatever I want." At that moment, I realized that something had changed irreversibly. It was no longer just a game. This was something different, something I never expected from my wife. The next day, I felt strange. Her words sounded in my head, reminding me of that night. I tried to convince myself that this was just an experiment, a way to add newness to the relationship. But something inside me resisted. It wasn't the dominance itself that bothered me, but the pleasure with which she did it. I remembered how she looked at me, how she enjoyed the moment in which I was powerless. I tried to talk to her. "Emily, yesterday, I think you went too far." She looked up from her cup of coffee, looked lazily at me and grinned. "Is it true? I thought you were enjoying yourself. Didn't you enjoy being in my place?" "It was different. I'm not used to this." I ran my hand through my hair, feeling the growing tension. "It's important for me to understand where this leads." She stood up, came closer, leaned over and whispered, "It leads wherever I want, Tom." I didn't know what to answer. Everything that was happening was beginning to go beyond a simple game, and I was afraid that I would soon no longer recognize the woman I had once loved. Emily was becoming different. It was not just my imagination or a fleeting feeling. I saw changes in her eyes, in her behavior, in the way she looked at me. Sometimes it seemed to me that there was a completely different person in front of me. Sex was no longer what it used to be. If before it was filled with passion, tenderness, desires emanating from both of us, now it increasingly turned into something else. Emily dominated, controlled every movement, every breath, every moment. She planned our nights as if she were staging a scene in a theater, and I felt like an actor playing someone else's role. "Emily, I think this is all getting out of line," I said one day after a particularly stressful night. She looked at me with slight surprise and grinned. "Tom, but you like it." Her fingers slowly slid over my chest. "Isn't that so?" "Sometimes," I admitted. "But more and more often it seems to me that you are doing this not for our sake, but for your own sake." As if this became something more for you than just a desire. She pulled away abruptly, got out of bed, and pulled on her robe. "Tom, don't start. These are just games. We experiment and diversify our lives. Don't you love it when I take control?" Her voice became a little harsher. I sat down, rubbing my face with my hands. "I like it when we both want the same thing. And now I feel that you are changing the rules without my consent." She chuckled, tilting her head to the side. "You're just not used to it. You've always been in control of everything around you, and now it's time for you to learn to let go." I looked at her and felt a chill run down my spine. Emily wasn't like this before. She didn't try to subjugate me, didn't try to impose her desires. There was now something in her voice that I didn't understand, but felt with every cell she was no longer just my wife. She was becoming someone else. "Just trust me, Tom," she whispered, approaching me again. "Everything is under control. Our control." When Lily came to visit, I immediately felt that this visit would not be ordinary. Lily never showed much love for her sister, and she always viewed our marriage with slight skepticism. She was only 2 years younger than Emily, but she always acted as if she knew much more about life. "Well, how are things here?" she asked with a grin, entering the house and looking around. "Is everything as perfect as it seems from the outside?" I felt Emily tense. She hugged her sister, but there was no particular warmth in this gesture. "Tom, pour me something stronger." Lily turned to me, taking off her jacket. "It seems like I'll have to listen to a lot of interesting things today." I went to the kitchen to pour her whiskey, but when I returned, I saw Lily carefully watching her sister, bowing her head slightly, as if assessing something invisible to me. "So Emily is now busy. With experiments?" she drawled, sitting down in a chair and clasping her glass in her hands. I glanced at Emily, but she just shrugged. "What do you mean?" I asked, feeling anxiety rising inside. Lily grinned and took a sip. "Oh, nothing. You just know me, Tom. I always notice things that others choose not to see. But if you like everything, then, of course, I will remain silent. I looked at Emily, but her face remained expressionless. It was as if this conversation didn't concern her at all. Lily, if you have something to say it directly. I tried to speak calmly, but everything was shrinking inside. Lily leaned forward, her eyes sparkling with something that could be taken for sympathy or mockery. You understand that some people like to change the rules, Tom. And sometimes, not everyone likes their new rules. She took the last sip and put the glass on the table. Okay, I'll go take a shower. Don't be bored without me. When Lily left the room, Emily immediately followed her. As soon as the bedroom door closed behind them, she suddenly grabbed Lily's wrist and pulled her forcefully closer. What do you know? Emily hissed, squeezing her fingers tighter. Lily raised an eyebrow slightly, but didn't look scared. Be careful, little sister. Her voice was cold, but a spark of mockery danced in her eyes. You don't want to make a scene right here? Stop wagging. Emily clenched her teeth. I see how you look at me, how you construct phrases, as if you are hinting at something. I'm not stupid, Lily, so post it. Lily smiled and pulled her hand away, taking a step back. And what will you do if I know something? Will you forbid me to speak? Are you going to make a scandal? Emily took a deep breath, trying to compose herself. If you saw something, if you know something, Lily, you better say it now. Because if you try to ruin my life, I won't forgive you. Lily laughed short, carefree, but her eyes remained cold. I didn't say anything, Emily. For now. But you know, sometimes silence speaks louder than words. She turned and walked out of the bedroom, leaving her sister standing in tense silence, her clenched fists trembling barely noticeably. For the first time in a long time, Emily felt afraid. I immediately noticed that Emily became irritated when Lily stayed longer than planned. Emily usually knew how to control her emotions, but this time she looked tense, as if something was weighing on her. She walked around the house pretending to be busy, but I knew her too well not to notice that she was nervous. You're not yourself today, I remarked, sitting down on the sofa and sipping coffee. Lily annoys you. It's just unexpected that she decided to stay, Emily answered shortly, avoiding my gaze. She seems to have plenty of other places to spend the night. Lily behaved differently. She seemed relaxed, too relaxed, and was watching me with some kind of hidden curiosity. She threw glances at me that I could not interpret unambiguously. At first, I thought it was just her usual mockery, but then I noticed that her attention became more insistent. Tom, aren't you tired of being so serious? Lily said over dinner, brushing her hair back. You're always so. Correct. I chuckled, not giving her words much meaning. Is this bad? Someone needs to be an adult in this family. I guess. She looked at me a little longer than she should have, and then turned her gaze to Emily. You were once completely different, right? Emily pursed her lips as her knife slid lightly across the plate. Lily, maybe you can mind your own business, she said in a tone that showed irritation. Lily just shrugged and smiled as if nothing had happened. Over the next few days, I noticed how Lily made excuses to be near me. She came into the kitchen while I was making coffee, lingered in the living room while I was reading, and always found a way to start a conversation. Tom, do you even like to have fun? Or are you always so serious? She asked one evening when Emily had gone to take a shower. Lily, what are these strange questions? I glanced at her briefly. Do you think I'm sad? I don't know. It just seems to me that you deserve a little more. Freedom, her voice sounded almost lazy, but there was something more in her eyes. I ignored her hint, pretending that I didn't notice this shade in her voice. To me, she was just my wife's younger sister. I didn't see anything serious in her behavior. But Emily seemed to have seen it. When Lily finally left, the house became its usual quiet again. The tension in the air seemed to dissolve, and Emily became herself again. She no longer cast anxious glances or became nervous for no apparent reason. She even smiled more often, and her touches became softer and warmer. Well, it's just you and me again, she said one evening when we were alone in the living room. Did you miss me? I chuckled, pulling her closer. Certainly. You know that I love it when everything is calm. She ran her fingers along my neck, leaned closer, and whispered, Then maybe it's worth noting this. Her lips were warm, demanding, but this time they did not have the cold control that I had felt in recent weeks. We kissed slowly, as if rediscovering each other. She ran her hands over my chest, slowly undoing the buttons of my shirt. Did you miss me? She asked again, her voice becoming hoarse. You can't even imagine, I answered, hugging her tighter. We moved to the bedroom, shedding our clothes as we went. This time everything was different. There was no tension, no struggle for power. Emily didn't try to dominate, and I didn't feel like a stranger at that moment. It was pure desire, a passion that has always been between us. As her body arched under my hands, she whispered my name, clinging to the sheets. I felt how the warmth of her skin mixed with mine, how her breathing became intermittent, how our bodies moved in the same rhythm. Tom! She breathed, squeezing my shoulders. I kissed her back, plunging into her again and again until we were both lost in the moment, forgetting everything else. When it was over, we just lay next to each other, breathing heavily. Emily laid her head on my chest and ran her finger over my skin. We need this more often. Without thoughts, without worries, she muttered. I kissed the top of her head in agreement. At that moment, everything really felt right. But deep inside me there remained a slight worry. Because lately, whenever something got too good, it never lasted. The first warning signs were subtle, almost imperceptible, like a barely audible whisper lost in the noise of everyday life. Emily started staying late at work again, but now her excuses seemed less convincing to me. Sorry, Tom, urgent project, she said when I called her late that evening. There was no usual irritation in her voice, but something in her tone seemed to me too even, as if she had prepared in advance for such a conversation. You said that this project is almost finished, I noted, checking my watch. It was almost 11. She hesitated for a moment, but immediately found the answer. There are new edits from the client. You understand, I can't just give up everything. I wanted to say something else, but at that moment muffled laughter was heard in the background. Male. Are you not alone? I asked, gripping the phone tighter. What? Her voice became a little sharper. Tom, of course not. It's just one of my colleagues. We're having a little discussion here. I nodded slowly, although she couldn't see it. A bad feeling crept into my thoughts, but I didn't yet know whether to attach any importance to it. The next day, Lily called me. Her voice was unusually light, but I immediately realized that there was something more hidden behind it. Hello, Tom. How are you doing? She asked with feigned ease. Lily, why the call? I knew that she was not one of those who just showed concern. Yes, I just decided to find out if everything is okay with you and Emily. She's been so busy lately. There was a subtle mockery in her voice. What do you want to say? Something squeezed unpleasantly in my chest. Oh, nothing, just. I wonder if you know who she hangs out with when she's late at work, she said slowly, drawing out her words. Lily, don't start. If you have something to say, speak directly. She chuckled quietly. Tom, you're not stupid. Just think for yourself. Women don't just change without a reason. Do you know something? I asked, feeling how cold everything inside was. No. She paused. Not yet. But be careful, Tom. Sometimes what seems like a normal job turns out to be something completely different. I hung up, leaving myself alone with my growing doubts. Now it seemed to me that Lily was trying to say more than she was letting on. The next evening, Emily was late again. I decided not to call or write. I was just waiting. The hours passed slowly. Eventually, the door opened and she entered the house. I sat in the dark, watching her. Why is it so late? I asked. She shuddered, but immediately controlled herself. Tom, don't start. I'm tired. From what? From work? Or from me? I couldn't help asking this question. Tom, you're acting strange. Everything is fine. Just a little difficult period. I looked at her carefully. Her hair was slightly disheveled, lipstick was glistening on her lips, and she smelled not of the office, not of papers or coffee, but of something else. Too sweet. Strangers. "Are you sure everything is okay?" I asked, tilting my head. She held my gaze, but then just rolled her eyes. "Tom, you're paranoid." She kissed me on the cheek and quickly disappeared into the bathroom. I remained sitting, clenching my fists. Now I knew for sure this was not just stress. This is something different, and I had to find out what exactly. Emily didn't think she could ever cheat on her husband. She always considered herself a devoted woman, one who values family and tradition. But something has changed. Perhaps it was the routine that was dragging their marriage into monotony, or something in herself that needed a way out. When she met Alex, everything happened too fast for her to stop. Alex was a new consultant in their company, tall, confident, charismatic. He knew how to carry a conversation, how to make a woman feel special. For the first time, he held his gaze on her a little longer than his colleagues were supposed to. In the second, he accidentally touched her hand while handing over a document. On the third day, he invited me for coffee under the pretext of discussing work. Emily was hesitant at first, but still agreed. "You have great taste," Alex said when she chose a caramel latte. "Just a habit," she answered, smiling. This coffee was the first step in what led them to a hotel room a few weeks later. She didn't think it would be so easy to lose control. I began to notice changes in Emily. At first, it was little things. She checked her phone more often, answered in monosyllables, and retreated into herself. Then delays at work began, which became more and more frequent. One evening, I was sitting at home watching the news when the phone rang. Lily. "Hello, Tom. How are you?" "Fine, how are you?" I was surprised by her call. "Yes, so. I just wanted to ask, don't you notice that Emily has changed?" Her voice was almost mocking, but I felt hidden anxiety. "What do you mean?" Something squeezed unpleasantly in my chest. "It's just, she's somehow different. Delays, frequent calls, unexpected business trips." Lily paused. "Did she tell you that she was in the office until late on Friday?" I frowned. "Yes. And what?" "Nothing, it's just. The office was closed." The line went dead, leaving me completely confused. I tried to convince myself that it was just a misunderstanding, but a feeling of anxiety had already settled inside. Emily met up with Alex again at the hotel. He was waiting for her, sitting on the edge of the bed, with a half smile on his lips. "You're so tense," he said, coming closer. "Relax, honey." She took a deep breath. This was wrong. It was dangerous. But Alex knew how to take the pressure off her. That night, I lay in bed alone, staring at the ceiling. Emily said she'd be back late, but for some reason I wasn't sure she'd be back at all. Something inside me told me everything is no longer the same as before. But I was about to find out how much things had changed. Emily entered the hotel room with her hood up so she wouldn't be recognized. It was quiet inside, only the dim light of the table lamp created a cozy atmosphere. Alex was already waiting for her, sitting in a chair with a glass of whiskey in his hand. He looked up lazily as she closed the door behind her. "You're late," he said, taking a sip. "Again, does your husband control your every move?" Emily sighed heavily and sat down on the edge of the bed. "Tom suspects something," she admitted. "He started asking questions and looking at me too closely. It's getting harder and harder for me to get out." Alex grinned, put the glass on the table, and came closer. "Seriously? This Tom of yours suddenly decided to become a detective husband? What a pity." There was mockery in his voice. Emily gave him an annoyed look. "Alex, this is not funny. I can't just go ahead and tell him, 'Hey, honey, I'm cheating on you.' He will start digging, but I don't want scandals." Alex leaned closer, his hands sliding over her shoulders. "Oh, of course. Poor Tom, who has no idea that his wife has been in bed with another man for a long time. But, you know, I even feel sorry for him. He can't even imagine how much you like it when you're here with me." His lips whispered the last words right in her ear. Emily closed her eyes, taking a deep breath. She liked this feeling danger, control, complete difference from her usual family life. Alex was neither caring nor gentle, but that was his attraction. "You're too confident," she whispered as he pushed her against the wall. "I just know the truth," Alex grinned. "Unlike your husband. Have you ever given yourself to him like that? So greedily, without a trace? Or does he still think that you are a modest, decent wife?" Emily felt two feelings fighting inside her: irritation and excitement. Alex knew which buttons to press, and he took full advantage of it. "Tom is not like you," she said, meeting his gaze. "Of course not," Alex replied, squeezing her wrists. "Because he is weak. He allows you to lie. He allows himself to be deceived. A real man would feel like his woman was having sex behind his back. But Tom, he's just a pathetic, naive fool." Emily pulled away abruptly. "Don't talk about him like that." Alex chuckled, letting go of her hands. "Oh, now you suddenly remembered that you have a husband. It's funny. But don't worry, honey. While he pretends to be a faithful family man, you are here with me, and you like it." She turned away, not wanting to admit the truth in his words. Because that was what scared her most. Alex was right. He approached her from behind, his fingers sliding along her neck, causing her to tremble. "You're not leaving, are you?" he whispered, kissing her temple. "You know you won't be able to stop." Emily closed her eyes, feeling Alex pull her back into his arms. She knew it was wrong, but something inside her demanded continuation. Alex was her secret, her forbidden passion. "I have to go," she muttered, but her voice sounded unconvincing. Alex laughed. "You say that every time, and every time you stay. So what's the point of this game, Emily?" She felt his hand squeeze her hips, and his breathing deepened. "Tom won't know anything. If you're careful, or maybe you want him to find out." Emily pulled back, but Alex caught her hand again. "Admit it, you like this feeling. Risk, the opportunity to be discovered. You even like that your husband is a fool who doesn't understand anything." She wanted to object, but couldn't, because maybe he was right. I didn't know who to trust. Internal tension grew, thoughts were confused. I wanted proof. I wanted to understand if something was really happening, or if it was just a trick of my mind. Lily appeared unexpectedly. She just called me and said, "Tom, we need to talk. Personally." We met in a small cafe on the outskirts of the city. Lily looked serious, but there was something else in her eyes, something like sympathy. "Lily, if you want to drop hints again," I began, but she interrupted. "Listen, Tom, I don't want you to be an idiot. You are my friend. Yes, we didn't always get along, but I can't stand to see what she does to you." I tensed up. "So is it true?" My voice trembled. Lily took a deep breath and nodded. "I won't tell you everything. Yet. You're not ready, but I will help you. If you really want to know the truth, you'll have to open your eyes." "Do you have evidence?" I asked, not knowing if I wanted to hear the answer. She took out her phone and placed it in front of me. "I've been following her for several weeks now. And Tom, you should see this." I slowly picked up the phone, but before pressing play, I looked at Lily. "Why are you helping me? You are her sister." "Because I'm tired of being silent," she answered. "Because you don't deserve it." I took a deep breath and pressed the button. The phone screen came to life, and I saw the recording. The camera was shaking. Lily was clearly filming from afar, trying to remain unnoticed. Emily was in the video. She stood at the entrance to the hotel, looking around before going inside. A couple of seconds later, a man appeared after her, tall, broad-shouldered, with a confident gait. He put his arm around her waist, and she didn't resist. I felt like everything was shrinking inside. The air in my chest became heavy, and my ears began to buzz. It was like a punch to the stomach. "Who is he?" I asked hoarsely, without taking my eyes off the screen. "Alex," Lily answered. "A new consultant in her company. It appeared a few months ago. At first it was just delays, then dinners, and now." She nodded at the phone. "You see everything yourself." I turned off the video and put my phone down. Lily watched me carefully, but I could not make out the expression on her face, whether it was sympathy or satisfaction. Why did you decide to help me? I asked again. Lily grinned and shrugged. Maybe because I always knew she was like that. Maybe because I'm tired of her getting everything she wants and never facing the consequences. Or maybe because you are the only one in this story who deserves the truth. I ran my hand over my face, trying to collect myself. What should I do now? I asked quietly. Lily leaned forward, her voice low and confident. It's up to you, Tom. You can close your eyes to this, you can cause a scandal, or you can make her regret it. The question is, what do you really want? I looked at her. There was a fire in her eyes, not just a desire to reveal the truth, but something else. Something I didn't understand yet, but I knew one thing for sure. After this day, my life would no longer be the same. Lily looked at Tom and felt a strange feeling spreading in her chest. She couldn't pinpoint exactly when it started, maybe when she first saw her sister treat him with disdain, or when she noticed how attentive and loyal he remained, no matter what. Tom deserved better. He deserved love, respect, and sincerity. All the things Emily never appreciated. Lily knew her sister too well for her. Marriage was just another status, another achievement. And now that Emily had betrayed him, Lily couldn't help thinking that maybe this was her chance. She remembered how Tom looked at the screen of her phone, how his fingers turned white with tension when he saw evidence of betrayal. He was broken, but he didn't realize it yet. At that moment, Lily wanted to come closer, touch his hand, tell him that he was not alone, that there was someone nearby who truly understood him. But she knew that it was not time yet. Tom was a man who made decisions deliberately, step by step. He himself had to realize that his wife had long ceased to be his companion, and if that moment comes, Lily will be there. I didn't know how much I drank. I think it was whiskey at first, then I switched to something stronger, and then it didn't matter anymore. A buzzing emptiness in my head, a heaviness in my chest, and blurry silhouettes around me. Anger, pain, betrayal, everything mixed into one viscous, bitter cocktail. I looked at the cloudy reflection in the glass of the bar and thought, maybe I should just forget, pretend that nothing happened, that Emily didn't betray me, that I didn't see the damn evidence. Tom, get up. Someone's voice broke through the fog. Female. Lily. I felt her hands grab my shoulders, trying to force me up. She said something, but the words were drowned in an alcoholic veil. Let's go, Lily repeated insistently, practically dragging me towards the exit. You can't stay here. I didn't resist. Not because he couldn't, but because he didn't want to. I didn't care. The whole world was collapsing. Why fight then? I woke up in another room. I didn't immediately understand where I was, but Lily's familiar smell and dim light suggested the answer. She sat me down on the sofa, covering me with a blanket. Are you just going to get drunk and forget about everything? She asked, sitting down next to him. Is there a better option? My voice was hoarse, with bitterness. Lily didn't answer right away. She just looked at me with a long, deep look. Yes, she finally said, but you have to decide what you want. Alex knew how to treat women. He sensed their weak points and knew how to apply pressure exactly where needed, and Emily was no exception. You understand that he was never your equal, right? He said, sitting opposite her in the hotel room. Tom is pathetic. He lives in the past, believes in some principles that have not existed in this world for a long time. Emily bit her lip, but didn't say anything. Lately, these conversations have begun to happen more and more often. Alex not only enjoyed their relationship, he gradually convinced her that her marriage to Tom was a mistake. He never knew what you really were like, Alex continued, leaning closer. You were always stronger than him, smarter. He was just pulling you down. He's a good man, she objected quietly, but her voice sounded uncertain. Alex chuckled. Good? Good for whom? For yourself? Did he ever listen to you? Did I understand you? He looked carefully into her eyes. You know the answer. Emily looked away. Something was fighting inside her, memories of the years spent with Tom, of his care, of how he always supported her. But Alex said the right things that sounded logical when looked at from a different angle. You're afraid to admit that you're bored with him, he continued, tracing the edge of her wrist with his finger. "You're afraid to admit to yourself that you need someone who can keep you on your toes. Someone who knows what he wants. And Tom, he's just an extra in your life. Decoration." Emily took a deep breath. Alex's words seeped into her mind, poisoning what remained of her fidelity to her husband. Tom really wasn't as confident as Alex. He had never made her feel so, greedily desired. "You want to be with a man who knows what he wants, and this man in front of you," Alex whispered, lifting her face by the chin. Emily looked at him, and at that moment something broke inside her. She no longer resisted. "I didn't show that I knew." This was the most difficult thing, to restrain myself, not to show a single drop of anger, not to show a single emotion. But I knew that if I wanted to play this game, I had to do it right. When Emily returned home, I greeted her the same way as always, with a slight smile, as if nothing had changed. She smiled too, but it seemed to me that doubt flashed in her eyes, as if part of her was waiting for something else: conflict, suspicion. But they were not there. "How was your day?" I asked, pouring myself some coffee. "It's a little tiring," she replied, undressing in the hallway. "There is too much work." I nodded. Works, of course. I knew who she was with and where. But instead of asking an awkward question, I moved closer and gently kissed her temple. I felt her body tense for a moment, but then she relaxed. "Maybe we can go somewhere this weekend, like before?" I suggested. Emily raised her eyebrows in surprise. "You haven't offered this for a long time." "I just thought we should spend more time together. Don't you agree?" She hesitated to answer, but then nodded. "Yes, sure." I knew that by doing this, I was cutting the ground from under her feet. If she feels safe, if she thinks that I don't suspect anything, she will start making mistakes. And I need these errors. The next step was to get them to relax. I became more attentive and caring. He showed interest in her affairs and paid compliments. She began to feel more comfortable, which meant that her caution was going away. Then I started laying traps. Unnoticeable but effective. A spoofed message, an accidentally forgotten key, a non-existent business trip. Every move was thought out, and every word I said had a purpose. Their end was only a matter of time. I couldn't let my emotions control me. Now it all came down to facts, to the evidence. I had to collect them, build a complete picture in front of me before taking the next step. Lily became my eyes and ears. She knew where to look. She had access to things that I wouldn't have been able to access on my own. A new name appeared in Emily's phone: Catherine. Lily chuckled, showing me the screen. Original. He didn't even bother to think of anything more inventive. "Alex?" I asked, clenching my fists. "Alex," she confirmed. I looked at his social networks. Classic narcissist. Loves attention, expensive things, and, it seems, other people's wives. I exhaled slowly. I need more than just a name on the phone. Lily nodded. "So, we're playing surveillance. Are you ready?" I was ready. I started paying attention to little things. She went into the shower, but the phone remained on the table. It only took me seconds to take a photo of the messages. "I missed you. When will I see you?" Today there was so little time. I read them and felt cold anger boiling inside me. But I needed more. Photos, dates, exact places. Lily and I came up with a plan. She accidentally ended up in the same restaurant where Emily was sitting with Alex. Lily ordered herself a coffee and sat down at a table in the shade, watching as her sister laughed as she leaned closer to her lover. At the right moment, she turned on the recording on her phone. "Tom, you should hear this," she said, handing me the recording. The recording had everything. Her voice filled with tenderness, laughter, and promises. "It's so easy with him. He understands me. Tom, he's just different. He's not the one I loved anymore." Emily spoke quietly, but there was not a drop of doubt in her voice. "Then divorce him," Alex answered calmly. "This is what you want." There was a short pause, and then Emily's voice became quieter, almost a whisper. "I'm afraid. If I file for divorce, I'll be left with nothing. Tom will never let me go just like that. Lawyers, court, division of property. This will drag on for years. And I don't want to start from scratch. Alex chuckled. Don't worry, baby. We'll figure something out. I have connections. The main thing is, are you ready? Emily didn't answer right away, but she could be heard on the recording taking a deep breath. Yes, I'm ready. Now I had more than just facts. I had the truth, and she was disgusting. Alex knew that sooner or later Tom would start to guess. He had been in the shadows for too long, giving Emily the opportunity to enjoy the game of secret love, but now it was time to move on to action. There was too much at stake. Are you sure he doesn't suspect anything? Alex asked, twirling a glass of whiskey in his fingers. Emily nervously bit her nail as she looked at him from the table. He started acting strange, but he didn't tell me anything. I think if I had known, I would have already caused a scandal. Alex grinned. Maybe he's just playing his game. Maybe it's waiting to strike at the most unexpected moment. Is this what you want? Emily pursed her lips. No, I want to end this so he can't hurt me. Alex nodded and, taking a sip, said, Then it's time to move on to plan B. Do you think this will work? Her voice trembled. You said to yourself that you don't want to be left with nothing. If we do this right, he won't stand a chance. I left work late. My head was buzzing with fatigue, but thoughts about tomorrow's meeting with the lawyer kept me on my toes. Tomorrow, I will take the first step towards leaving Emily with nothing. I was going to outsmart her. I didn't know I was being followed. As I approached my car, there were quick steps behind me. I only had time to turn around when a sharp pain flared up in the back of my head, and everything was plunged into darkness. I woke up from a dull pain in my head. The first thing I felt was that I couldn't move. The ropes dug into my wrists, my mouth was sealed with tape. The air smelled of dampness, the walls were oppressive with their coldness. My head was spinning, my heart was beating slowly, as if I was under something heavy. Alex stood in front of me, watching me with a slight smile. Are you awake, buddy? He grinned. And we thought that you would sleep like that. I tried to speak, but only muffled sounds came out through the tape. Oh, sorry, Alex leaned closer. You must not be very comfortable. But it's okay, it'll all be over soon. He turned around and motioned to someone in the darkness. Emily stepped forward. I couldn't believe my eyes. There was still a glimmer of hope inside that this was some kind of mistake, that all this is not true, but her expression was cold. Did you really think you could outsmart me? She said, crossing her arms over her chest. You thought I'd just leave empty-handed. Alex took out a folder with documents and threw it on the table in front of me. It's simple here, buddy. You sign and you are free. You rewrite your business, your home, your bills, and then we'll leave you alone. I shook my head furiously. No, Alex frowned. So you decided to go the hard way. A sharp blow to the stomach forced me to bend over as far as the ropes would allow. Then another one in the face. The taste of blood filled my mouth, and I groaned in pain. You've always been pathetic, Tom, Alex chuckled. All my life I pretended to be a decent family man, but in the end I turned out to be just another sucker who was fooled. I looked up at Emily. She just stood there with her arms crossed and looked at me with disgust. Do you know what's the funniest thing? Alex continued. She never had any regrets. Never. All this time you were a convenient support for her, a sponsor, but not a husband. Sign the documents, Tom, Emily said in an even voice, or we will continue. I didn't answer, I just spat blood on the floor. Alex shook his head irritably. Okay, I like it when the process drags on. He waved his hand, and they struck me again, this time in the ribs. I was gasping for air, but Alex just grinned. Weakling, he chuckled. You can't even resist. Maybe you deserve it, he turned to Emily. Tell me, honey, don't you think he looks like a beaten puppy? Emily snorted, tilting her head to the side. He has always been like this. I just didn't notice it before. I felt a prick in my arm. Almost immediately, a strange weakness seized the body, and the consciousness began to wander in the fog. The pain became distant, muffled. Calm down, buddy. Alex's voice became distant, distorted. It's just a little help to make you more cooperative. The last thing I saw before falling into darkness was Emily's cold, indifferent gaze as she watched everything that was happening. I woke up to the icy wind whipping across my face. My head was splitting with pain and my body was aching. The taste of blood was still in my mouth. I blinked, trying to see where I was. The dim light of a street lamp, the smell of wet asphalt. I was outside, abandoned like trash. Rising to my elbows with difficulty, I looked around. No one. Just an empty street and the distant noise of cars. I tried to remember what happened. Alex, Emily, documents, beating, prohibited substances. Everything mixed into one nightmare whirlwind. I didn't know how much time had passed. My head was throbbing, my memories were confused. The only thought that was in me now was to get to Lily. She could help. Every step was difficult. My legs were trembling, my whole body was one continuous bruise. When I finally got to her door, my strength completely left me. I knocked weakly, almost hopelessly. A few seconds later, footsteps were heard outside the door. The door opened slightly, and Lily appeared on the threshold. Her eyes widened in horror when she saw me. "Volume," her voice broke. "Lord, what's wrong with you?" I tried to answer, but instead of words, a wheeze came out of my throat. Everything swam before my eyes. I felt Lily grab me by the arms, trying to hold me. "Come in," she whispered, pulling me inside. "I'll figure it out. I'll help you." Before consciousness completely left me, I heard her voice. "They'll pay for it, Tom. I swear." I woke up from a muffled noise. The head was still buzzing, the body ached, but the pain was no longer so sharp. I felt something soft under my back and realized that I was in bed. The smell of coffee came from the kitchen, and I heard someone moving around the room. "You've finally woken up." Lily's voice was even, but there was anxiety in it. I sat up slowly, wincing in pain. "How long did I sleep?" "Almost a day," she answered, placing a cup of hot tea in front of me. "How do you feel?" "Like I was hit by a truck." "Twice," I muttered, rubbing my temples. "What actually happened? How did I end up on the street?" Lily looked at me carefully, as if not knowing where to start. "Tom, there's something you need to know." Her voice was cautious. "I checked your documents. You signed the papers?" I froze. "What papers?" "To transfer all property to Emily," she said quietly. "House, workshop, business, everything belongs to her now." I felt my blood freeze in my veins. Memories began to emerge in my head. Alex, the cold walls of the basement, pain, an injection in the arm, cloudy consciousness. "Damn," I whispered, clenching my fists tightly. "They made me sign it." "When I was on illegal substances." Lily nodded silently. I covered my face with my hands. Everything I had built over the years now belonged to the woman who betrayed me. I've lost everything. But at the same time, something flared up inside me. Not despair, not fear, anger. "They think they won," I said, looking up at Lily. "But this is not the end." I was sitting at the table in Lily's living room, holding a cup of hot coffee in my hands. After everything I had been through, the warmth of the drink in my palms seemed to be the only thing I could still control. Lily sat opposite me, looking at me searchingly. "They think they won," I said, clenching my fist. "But they don't know that I remembered everything." Lily nodded, her eyes flashing with a dangerous fire. "Then we must destroy them." "We have proof." She took out her phone and scrolled through the list of audio files. "The conversation that I recorded is priceless. Emily is afraid of being left with nothing, and Alex invites her to pull off a scam." I thought about it. Just report it to the police? Too easy. I wanted them to feel the same pain that I felt. "We need more," I said. "Alex keeps his money offshore, but he has accounts into which he transfers funds for everyday expenses. If we can gain access to them then." I glanced at Lily. "You said that your friend knows how to dig into bank records." Lily grinned. "Oh, believe me, he loves such tasks. We just need to give it a purpose." The plan began to take shape. I decided to play on Alex's self-confidence and Emily's greed. We prepared a fake message from a lawyer saying that there were problems with the documents for the transfer of property. It stated that Emily's personal presence was required to sign additional papers. "Will she bite?" asked Lily. "Of course, he will bite. She's too afraid that she'll lose everything," I chuckled. "And Alex will insist that she sort this out as quickly as possible." Everything went according to plan. Emily arrived at the appointed place, and at this time Lily and I handed over the recording of the conversation to the police and sent it to key people who could strike a blow to Alex's reputation. When Emily returned home, a surprise awaited her. Alex was furious his accounts were frozen, and the police were on the doorstep. "You said that no one would know," Alex yelled, grabbing Emily's hand. I don't know what's going on," she stammered, trembling with fear. But it was all over. Their game was over, and now Lily and I watched their fall. "It's time to move on," I said, watching the police take Alex away and Emily sobbing hysterically. Lily squeezed my hand. "Now you are free, Tom." I stood on the other side of the glass, looking at the woman I once called my wife. Emily sat opposite, in a prison uniform. Her face looked haggard. Her eyes were dull. She no longer resembled that self-confident woman who coldly watched my suffering. Now she was just a shadow of herself. "Tom." Her voice trembled. I don't know where to start." I was silent, slowly sitting down on the chair. I was wondering how she would start this conversation. Will he beg? Will it be justified? "I made a mistake," she continued, looking at me with wide eyes. "Alex, he used me. I didn't think it would turn out like this. I'm sorry." I smiled bitterly. "Are you sorry?" I repeated. "Is it a pity that you were caught? Or is it a pity that you didn't manage to steal more from me?" Emily looked away, her fingers trembling as she clasped them. "I'm not asking for forgiveness, Tom," she said quietly. "I'm asking for help." I narrowed my eyes. "Help," I repeated, not believing my ears. "I have nothing." She continued, her voice becoming brittle. "Alex was imprisoned. His connections were useless. I'm facing a long sentence. If you talk to my lawyers, maybe if you say you don't want me to be sentenced too harshly." I looked at her carefully. Hundreds of memories were running through my head. How she laughed at my naivety, how she betrayed me, how she stood next to Alex, watching me be humiliated and beaten. Now she was asking me for leniency. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the table. "Emily," I said evenly, "you destroyed my life. You betrayed me in ways I could never imagine, and now you want me to help you." Her eyes filled with tears. "Tom, please. I can't spend my whole life in prison. I can't handle it." I exhaled slowly and looked at her again the last time. "It's not my problem," I said and stood up. "I wish you many years of realizing your mistakes." I turned away and walked towards the exit, leaving her behind. Her sobs sounded muffled behind the glass, but I no longer felt anything. No pain, no pity, no love. I sat on the couch in Lily's apartment, peering into a half-empty glass of whiskey. It's over. Emily is in prison. Alex is destroyed. I got justice. But why is there emptiness inside? "What are you thinking about?" Lily asked quietly, sitting down next to her. I shrugged, not taking my eyes off the amber liquid. "I don't know what to do now," I admitted. "For so many years, I built a life that was destroyed in an instant. There is no business. There is no home. Future." "There is a future," she interrupted. "It's just different now." I turned to her. There was no pity in her eyes, only warm understanding. Lily was always there, even when I didn't notice. Now she was the only person I could trust. "Stay with me until you figure out what you want," she suggested. "No pressure. Just be here." I looked at her. Brown hair, a slight smile, a warm gaze. And then I realized that she was always there for a reason. I ran my fingers over her cheek, then leaned closer. Lily didn't move away. Her breathing quickened when our lips met. First cautiously, then with growing passion. Her hands slid along my back, bringing me closer to her. When we were in her bedroom, I felt only her. The warmth of her skin, her heavy breathing, her impatient movements. She pulled my shirt off, her fingers running over my shoulders, making me shiver. I carefully laid her on the bed, ran my lips along her neck, enjoying every moment. Our bodies intertwined, moving in the same rhythm. Everything that came before pain, betrayal, anger disappeared, leaving only this moment. Lily whispered my name, her nails leaving hot marks on my back. I kissed her, greedily, deeply, feeling like I was filling the emptiness inside me not only physically, but also emotionally. That night, I thought neither about the past nor about the future. It was just now, only her. I sat in the police detective's office, wearily rubbing my temples. In front of me lay a stack of documents, which he slowly leafed through, tapping his pen on the table. "An impressive story, Mr. Hughes," he finally said, looking up at me attentively. "You were kidnapped, beaten, forced to sign documents for illegal substances, and then thrown into the street. And you want us to cancel this?" I met his gaze. "I want justice," I said firmly. "These documents are invalid. I was unable to make decisions. This is fraud and kidnapping. You already have evidence." The detective sighed, folding his hands on the table. "We received the recordings given to your—" He hesitated slightly, "to an acquaintance." "Lily, right. There is enough there to open a criminal case. Alex is already testifying, trying to blame everything on Emily. And your ex-wife. Let's just say her lawyer is not in the best position." I involuntarily clenched my fists. "So what's next?" The policeman flipped through the documents, found the required sheet, and pushed it towards me. "Official cancellation of the transfer of property. You need to sign here, and the house, workshop, business, everything will be returned to you." I took the pen and, without hesitation, signed. I felt a huge weight being lifted from my shoulders. "Thank you, detective," I said, putting away the documents. He chuckled slightly. "It's not for me to thank you. More like your friend. If it weren't for her persistence, we wouldn't have such a strong business." I nodded, realizing that he was right. Leaving the station, I breathed in the cool air and took out my phone. One message. From Lily. "Well, have you got your life back?" I smiled as I answered, "Yes, and I know who I want to share it with." I sat at my old wooden desk, looking at my open notebook. The ink was already drying on the last page where I completed my story. I ran my eyes over the words that formed the story of my life, one that began with pain and betrayal, but ended in a way I never dreamed of. There was laughter outside the window. I looked up and saw Lily in the backyard, busy with flowers, and our son and his family, his wife, and our grandson setting the table for dinner. I couldn't believe that 20 years had already passed. 20 years since I made the choice to leave the past behind and start anew. "Did you finish it yet?" Lily's voice rang out as she entered the office. Her hair is already touched with gray, but her eyes are still as warm and understanding. I smiled, closing the book. "Yes, this chapter is now closed." She came closer and put her hand on mine. "You didn't just close the chapter, Tom. You've built a new story, and she's beautiful." I looked at her, at a cozy home filled with warmth and laughter, at a family that I once almost lost, but then found again. And I knew this was the perfect ending to my story.